Good morning, friends, and welcome to Trans India, Real People, Real Emotions. We have a very special guest with us who has seen the various ups and downs in the commercial vehicle space. We have with us Mr. Shyam Maller, who's been with Eicher Motors for over 2 decades, and his overall experience in the commercial vehicle industry is close to 3 decades, which you might as well understand. He's seen the ups, downs, the changes in trucks.
स्कूल बच्चों का दूसरा घर होता है और इस घर का ख्याल रखना एक प्रिंसिपल के लिए आसान नहीं। पढ़ाई के साथ बच्चों का आराम, उनकी सेफ्टी, छोटी से छोटी चीज़ मेरी प्रायोरिटी है। वैसे ही स्कूल बस चुनना भी एक बहुत बड़ा डिसीजन था। पेरेंट्स का पीस ऑफ माइंड, मैनेजमेंट का भरोसा और बजट साथ लिए चलना पड़ता है। इसीलिए कभी कभी फर्म भी बनना पड़ता है। आखिर कोई अपने बच्चों की जिम्मेदारी मुझे दे रहा है तो कोई बजट की। लेकिन इतने सालों में एक चीज समझ आई है, अगर सही डिसीजन लें तो सबसे ज्यादा प्यार भी प्रिंसिपल को ही मिलता है।
चुनिए महिंद्रा क्रूजियर स्कूल बसेस। यह है मजबूत ट्यूबुलर स्ट्रक्चर, एंटी लॉक ब्रेकिंग, एंटी रोल बार, पैराबोलिक सस्पेंशन, IMAX, वाइडर सीट्स और बेस्ट इन क्लास माइलेज के साथ बच्चों के लिए सेफ और बाकी सब के लिए सबसे स्मार्ट चॉइस महिंद्रा क्रूजियर स्कूल बस।
Welcome, Mr. Maller, and thank you so much for your time. Can you take us through your journey in the commercial vehicle industry? How many years, where?
Yeah, thanks, Girish. Thanks for having me over. Nice to be here. Extremely privileged and, can I say, humbled this interaction. But being the good friend that you are, let's have this chat as easy a manner as we can.
Absolutely.
So, pretty much, I think I started off my so-called commercial vehicle foray as an engineer in telco. It's called telco then. Because at Tata Motors Pune, I started off as a GT, spent 3 years. And then I did my MBA from IIM Bangalore. And then is when I really stepped into the commercial vehicle industry in sales, so to speak. So that I joined Eicher Motors, which is of course now called V Commercial Vehicles. So I joined them in sales, started at the lower rungs as an area manager for Karnataka and Kerala, moved up the rungs, went across to the western region, the central region. Then I looked at some headquarter roles. I was there till 2000. So that's 87 to 2000, it's about 13 years. And then I just moved out for a short while, joined Tata Motors. Okay. This was sometime in 2002. Okay. 2002 to 2004, it's when Tata Motors were also trying to reinvent themselves from a so-called distribution company to a market-facing company, and that was then driven by Ravi Kant. I joined that, and I was the head of the southern region, the most difficult region for Tata Motors by virtue of the fact that they were in Leyland's backyard. So that was a exciting career. I spent 2 years there, and of course moved to the Concord subsidiary. Then I did a little bit of moving around here and there, and I got back to Eicher, but this time around when it was the joint venture with Volvo. The joint venture with Volvo and Eicher happened sometime in 2008, July. I joined them in October 2009. And I spent the next 11 years till May 2020 with them. And I handled multiple roles. I joined them in product planning, which is product strategy, brought out the new range of products, which is the V series, and then of course the Pro series and all of that stuff. Then I moved into hardcore sales and marketing. And I handled the entire range of vehicles, light and medium trucks, buses, international business for a while. Then of course I was handling the company-owned dealership. So I've pretty much seen the most part of the commercial organization of VECV, if I can call it. Right. So great to work. Of course, Volvo has been a phenomenally great partner for VECV. I think they are really great people to work with. Great set of products, quality, technology. So
but correct me if I'm wrong, the Volvo Eicher JV is by far the most successful JV in the commercial vehicle space. Am I right?
True. True. I would say it's the most successful probably in any of the automotive industry space, so to speak. Well, there are certain things which need to happen, but by and large, I think the collaborative environment that they provided, I think the Swedes are absolutely lovely people to work with. I mean, there's a contrast with the Germans as what is being talked about in the industry, but I think we've had a phenomenally great, it's inclusive, diversity is fantastic.
And there have been learnings from both the sides as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Actually, Volvo came into India because they wanted to make it big in the M&HCV space, which is by far the largest segment of the CV industry. I mean, if you leave out the small commercial vehicle, so to speak. So they wanted to make it big because they're very strong in the M&HCV category. And what they wanted from VECV, or what Eicher brought to the table, was low-cost sourcing, knowledge, of course, of the Indian market. And third, more importantly, we were doing very good on the light commercial vehicles, light and intermediate commercial vehicles. So we were actually the center of excellence for them, for Volvo, for their export business with the I and LCV part. So in markets like Indonesia, South Africa, the Middle East. So that's what they saw from us. And of course, at some point in time, which was I think about 2014 or thereabout, 15, we started making engines for them out of Pithampur, which was absolutely great quality engines, BS6 to begin with. And it's apparently still being sent out to them. It powers the trucks of Volvo, Renault, and yeah, that's about what it is. So it's a win-win situation for both the companies. Yeah.
Sir, how much has the industry changed over the years? When you joined to now in terms of volumes, quality of trucks. I know it's a huge change, but take us through it.
Oh, it's amazing, really, Girish. You'll be surprised. When I joined the industry, it was 1987. And I think not too many people would know the last vestiges of the Indo-Jap LCVs. I joined at the point in time when the Indo-Jap LCVs, which is basically DCM Toyota, Swaraj Mazda, Alvin Nissan was there earlier, and we as Eicher Mitsubishi, that's what we were called.
Right.
That is what came into the country sometime in 85, 86. I joined them in 87. So at that point in time, you'll be amazed, Girish, the industry had at one end, the lower end, the Bajaj Tempo Matador F307. I don't know, you'll probably see a few of these vehicles still running on the road. So that was basically what, a 2-tonner or thereabouts.
Okay.
And at the upper end, it was only a 4x2. The Tata 1210, the legendary Tata 1210.
Right.
SE and LPT was which means that was a 9-ton payload.
Correct.
So between that entire band or gap, there was no vehicle. And this is exactly bang in the middle, the Indo-Jap LCVs came in. If you leave aside Alvin Nissan, which is when it came in as Alvin Nissan, the rest of them brought in something called a 6-ton GVWA. And that's where Eicher brought in its Canter.
Correct.
The world famous Canter 6-ton light commercial vehicle. It was exciting. It was basically a new product positioning in that segment, so to speak. So it was really, really exciting times. Nobody, of course, knew about the product, barring, of course, I was handling Kerala. So we had a lot of this Malayali guys who used to work in the Middle East who knew this product.
Okay.
So that was a great help for us to build up the market. But it was absolutely exciting to be in that kind of a market, building up a new segment, literally, so to speak. And we've come.
But I think 9 tons was the most prominent model at that time, and it is only after that we started growing really big into other segments.
That is correct. No, you're right. Actually, when the Indo-Jap LCVs came in, it was a 6-ton GVW. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the payload was somewhere in the region of 3.5 or 4 tons. And you and I know that in those times, overloading was rampant.
Correct.
So a 6-ton GVW truck would mean that the guy would load 6 tons of payload, right? So somewhere down the road, Eicher realized that, and of course, Mitsubishi, the Japanese are very, very passionate about their business, but they're also very, I would say, I can't call it secretive, but not very forthcoming. So we wanted to tell them that we need to up the GVW range and bring in new products, allow access to the export markets and stuff like that. So somewhere down the road, those discussions didn't really go in a good way. And then we decided, or rather, Eicher decided to separate from Mitsubishi. Okay. So they sold their stake off from Eicher Motors. We were still called Eicher Motors then. And then we started developing, as what you said, the 9-ton GVW, the 12-ton GVW, right, and thereabouts. And then, of course, we started offering. So we were able to kind of mix and match different payloads, different cargo body lengths. But of course, the heart, you will be amazed, Girish, was the same 4031, the Japanese engine. And then we had the Nippon Denso pump.
For quite some time, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. Until we moved into, I think we moved into Denso. Of course, Bosch was there for a while. So, but it was really a great path. And particularly amongst the Indo-Jap LCVs, DCM Toyota bowed out. Alvin Nissan became Mahindra Nissan. And they were like, they just had one product, literally. So amongst the old, the initial players, only Swaraj Mazda survived, but it became SML Isuzu.
Correct.
So of course, SML Isuzu is more famous for its buses, and then of course they did not expand their product range the way Eicher did. Actually, the ICVs was a really successful for it. And of course, later on, we got into MNHCVs. Post Volvo, of course, there's been no looking back, so to speak. But of course, there's an unfinished agenda in terms of what we want to do in terms of...
We still have more to come.
That is right. Lots
that
is right. That is correct.
There was a time, when you used to have basically, a 9-tonner, then you would jump to maybe a 12 or then an 18, 20. Today, you have a vehicle at every ton or probably every 2 tons.
Absolutely.
Does it complicate things or it makes it more solution-based? How do you look at it?
It is actually solution-based, Girish, but I would imagine that in many other countries, they wouldn't want to have so many SKUs.
Correct.
In fact, in 2 of the companies, which is both Tata Motors, they used to call it complexity reduction. There's no way that you can have so many models and of course different cabin colors and all that stuff. So many different GVWs and cargo body lengths. It's actually it's a nightmare to handle. But then there is it's a segment-driven kind of phenomenon. So it's always the sales guys, and I was in product strategy for a while. So it was actually the sales guys used to tell product strategy, look, without this, we can't improve our market share. And then, product strategy will have to kind of work with product development, say that, this is the business case, this is what you need to do. And I think maybe I can call 4 out of 10 times, I guess things would work out positively, but 6 out of the 10 times, those products will never sell.
But from an OEM point of view, it's really a nightmare, getting all the, assembling the thing, getting the assembly line in place. Too much of back-end work to be done.
Actually, the advantage, I'm recalling my experience in Eicher Motors and VECV, is that we were relatively small, we were nimble, we were agile, fleet-footed. I don't know whether you've seen the Pithampur plant, it's very compact. So our ability to get things done, and of course at one point in time, we had this slogan, think of an idea and we'll provide it mobility. So we used to make applications on top of the basic cabin and chassis or the cowl and chassis, so to speak. So we believe that we have to be customer-centric and segment-focused. So our drive was that, though it was a nightmare in terms of managing SKUs, but I guess we managed it.
All of them have done well so far.
Reasonably well. I think it's a strong number 2 brand of an ICV in India. I think it speaks volumes of what the customers care for the product or what they perceive in terms of product quality, product performance. So mileage ka badshah is still
there.
Yeah, absolutely there. Yeah. So we're so passionate about it.
So what are the major transformations that you've seen in the truck technology?
You laugh at me if I say that I was around the time that I joined and I was in Tata Motors, there was no power steering in trucks. And Tata Motors brought the first power steering in a truck, which of course I think was LPT 1613. Of course, there was no multi-axle as well. 2213, I think, came in somewhere around late 90s or early 2000s, so to speak. So there was no 6x2, right? The 2213 as the first product which came in. So leave aside power steering. So I'm just talking about how basic the truck was. And there was some OEM, I don't want to take the name, so they used to say that, no, a power steering will reduce the fuel efficiency and the driver's health will get affected.
You become fitter.
Yeah. And all that kind of stuff, but jokes apart. So it started off from that level, and then we got into multi-axle, and then multi-axles took a little bit of time, 6x2 to become 8x2 and all of that stuff. But I think the real transformation which happened as far as this is concerned, of course, the more important thing was cabins coming in trucks. When I say trucks, LCVs and ICVs was a given.
Yeah.
but cabins to make it popular in MNHCVs was actually a very, very major step. Though, of course, I have still a fairly not very pleasant thing to say that the truck code is still not got implemented the way it should be. I think due to various reasons, so to speak. But I'm saying that truck technology has grown. I mean, if I were to just call one important thing that has happened, is that the power density of engines, I would say, is a big change which has happened. If you really look at it, I'm going back in time. A Tata 1210, I'm sorry, I'm using the same thing. It had a 692 DI engine. It used to produce about 100 horsepower, a 6-cylinder engine. Now you can do that with a 4-cylinder engine, right? So the power density has gone up, the torque levels have gone up. So I think the engine technology has moved to another new level. And of course, the emission levels have made the engines, of course, the entire vehicle far more complex, more electronics. There's more of a chemical technology now because of the after treatment system which is there. So it's a complex machinery on the wheels. And of course, to add to it, telematics, which is going to, I would imagine, revolutionize. I think we've just seen the initial phases of that getting used by the truckers or the fleet managers or whatever it is. But I think a lot more is yet to happen. But I must tell you that we are reasonably there because I think the infrastructure is catching up. The best part about it, Girish, is that I'm so happy to see that in the last 10 years and the way we are progressing, the nature of the expressways and what is being talked about, Bombay-Delhi happening in 24 hours and stuff like that is something, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you wouldn't have imagined that back in time that we could actually do this.
No way. I can just joke and tell you that I used to remember I was an area manager for Kerala and Karnataka, and traveling in Karnataka was much easier to do by buses.
Okay.
And I'm talking about the phase 87 to almost 90. Traveling between Bangalore and Mangalore was by a bus. And what bus? It's a Tata or a Leyland. And a bus would mean that it was a standard leaf spring suspension, or Leyland used to have the Weveler suspension, as what they used to call it.
Correct.
But horrible roads. Volvo buses were never in at that point in time, but we have come a long way. Now it's actually a breeze. The roads have got better. I think the vehicles have got better. So I think it's far better. And it's a much better life for truckers as well. And I'm really waiting to see that last piece of where the truckers will move away from trucks made on cowls to company-built cabs. Then they will be able to really leverage.
But I think that shift has already started significantly.
It has happened. The early adopters were the tippers. Basically, it started off with the 6x4 tippers and then the tractor trailers. They are by and large predominantly cabins now. And then what has now happened, which is accelerating that pace of accepting cabins, is typically the logistics companies which believe that, if they run more kilometers in a day, which is what will happen when you have a more ergonomic cabin, so to speak, and the drivers in some of those companies have also given them AC cabins.
Yes.
So that improves the productivity to a very large extent. So that is happening. And once these roads become great, and of course the positive is that the regulation and the penalty for overloading, so the extent of overloading on interstate travel has now come down to such a low level.
It's nearly zero, I think, except for a handful of places.
Absolutely. So it's actually great to see that people are moving to better technology, but I think the pace could have been a little faster had the government done some regulatory.
Done some hammering beforehand.
Absolutely, like the way they're doing it in the cars. Yes. The seat belts, the airbags, which they've now made mandatory even on the small cars. So somewhere I think you can't be just stating statistics that so many people die in a truck accident or an auto accident and stuff like that. You have to take some hard steps, but I think probably we'll get there.
स्कूल बच्चों का दूसरा घर होता है और इस घर का ख्याल रखना एक प्रिंसिपल के लिए आसान नहीं। पढ़ाई के साथ बच्चों का आराम, उनकी सेफ्टी, छोटी से छोटी चीज़ मेरी प्रायोरिटी है। वैसे ही स्कूल बस चुनना भी एक बहुत बड़ा डिसीजन था। पेरेंट्स का पीस ऑफ माइंड, मैनेजमेंट का भरोसा और बजट साथ लिए चलना पड़ता है। इसीलिए कभी कभी फर्म भी बनना पड़ता है। आखिर कोई अपने बच्चों की जिम्मेदारी मुझे दे रहा है तो कोई बजट की। लेकिन इतने सालों में एक चीज समझ आई है, अगर सही डिसीजन लें तो सबसे ज्यादा प्यार भी प्रिंसिपल को ही मिलता है।
चुनिए महिंद्रा क्रूजियर स्कूल बसेस। यह है मजबूत ट्यूबुलर स्ट्रक्चर, एंटी लॉक ब्रेकिंग, एंटी रोल बार, पैराबोलिक सस्पेंशन, IMAX, वाइडर सीट्स और बेस्ट इन क्लास माइलेज के साथ बच्चों के लिए सेफ और बाकी सब के लिए सबसे स्मार्ट चॉइस, महिंद्रा क्रूजियर स्कूल बस।
So one of the other challenges for the OEMs had been, meeting the new emission norms. You had Euro 3, then Euro 4.
Absolutely.
Then the 4 to 6 jump was the fastest
Very true.
that India has seen. How challenging was this?
It was absolutely a nightmare, I must say. And somewhere between that period, actually it was what, 2017 was BS4, All India, and 2020 1st April was BS6.
Correct.
And somewhere between the road, one sudden googly came in of this axle loading norms.
Axle loading.
Can you imagine?
That was going to be my next question, but before we get to that.
So that's the kind of pressure on the product development organization, because you can't take your eyes off the ball, because you need trucks which meet the higher axle loading norms, because that's what customers would want. But the not very great step which the government took was that they allowed the existing vehicles to look at.
Yes.
That was absolutely, I would say,
Debatable.
regressive. It's a regressive step, because those vehicles are not made to carry that, though they were,
I
but
mean,
not the
that was
safest.
the government's argument that these vehicles are any which ways carrying that load.
That's a very poor logic. It's a very poor logic. It would mean that you're stressing those aggregates. The tire companies would be obviously happy, but that's what it was. But then, and the transition between BS4 and BS6 in 3 years' time, I don't think it's happened anywhere in the world.
No, nowhere.
So, and of course, you are aware of the so-called what shall I say, jostling that was happening in BS4, EGR, SCR, and all that. So in BS6, everything became equal, right?
Absolutely.
So it's EGR plus SCR and all that kind of stuff. But it was really tough. It was very complex. It's not just the emissions, of course. To make emissions happen, there are a whole lot of sensors happening. There are about 23 sensors now in a truck. Wow. So it's a complex piece of machinery right now, and the real challenge, Girish, which I see is that the trucks are now costing maybe anywhere between 25 to 40 lakh or maybe 50 lakh. The driver who is supposed to run that truck, unfortunately, is still not the best, most important stakeholder who is not taken care of by the truck. I think, and then people talk about driver shortages and stuff like that. It's a vicious circle. I mean, you don't take care of them, you don't pay them well, you're not going to get a good guy. And you need to get a really good guy, because you need to handle this complex truck, right?
Correct. And now we are driving at faster speeds.
Absolutely. So, and I'm so happy to see the ADAS features which are now being provided. Of course, it's early days, but I think they are extremely crucial for better management of these trucks. But I must tell you here again, with e-commerce, I think a whole lot of players, I told you about this 3PL players and all that. I must mention this name because they are very, very unique. Delivery.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine, for an e-commerce requirement, they have bought Volvo tractor trailers. I think it's 420 horsepower.
Yes.
Yeah. And at one end, they have the regular ICVs, and of course, I think they tried some other brand of, I think they're 4x2. It's actually a 4x2 tractor trailer. 40 ton. So they are doing something like 26 to 30,000 kilometers a month. Now, this is the logic, or this is the thing that a lot of companies which are now realizing, but the retail guys don't appreciate it. Of course, the retail guys don't appreciate it just because at both the ends, they don't have ready loads. So the waiting time is a big killer.
True.
Whereas a guy like Delivery, companies like Delivery, they have assured loads on both sides. So which means they are able to do that trip really, really fast.
The turnaround is really quick.
It's really quick, and so therefore what it means is that the paradigm is increase your revenue earning kilometers rather than the retail mindset then was how much can I reduce my fuel cost. So of course, fuel cost is a big cost.
Usually.
So, but then what you get on the revenue is far more than probably what you save on the fuel. This is exactly what Delivery has demonstrated in a really big way.
Right.
A 420 horsepower with probably, compare it with maybe a 230 horsepower.
230 horsepower.
Yeah, something like that.
I mean, the speeds, power, everything.
Amazing. And the reliability, of course. Volvo is Volvo. So those are some things which are dramatically different. And I think those changes will now increase. More so, I'm jumping the gun, is that I think this focus on Gati Shakti, reducing the logistics cost as a percentage of GDP, multimodal. I think this is where I think some of the more, I would say, forward-looking transporters will take advantage of this and adopt technology, trucks.
I mean, we are actually seeing that the number of organized players, they are actually growing in the number.
Very true. Very true.
The smaller guys are of course going to be in trouble, but
very true. Absolutely true. And I think even at the middle level, the medium guys are also growing. People who have maybe about 40 to 50 or 50 to 100 trucks, they're also growing.
And they are also merging. I mean, we've seen a couple of transport companies, they are getting their synergies together, trying how they can collaborate and become a bigger player.
Absolutely.
I mean, which makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
But you're talking about, transporters and all this is fine, but the man behind the wheel, how important is that, and why is there still a shortage? I mean, we've been talking about this for decades now.
I think for me it's very, very clear. I mean, okay, let me just digress for a while. Post-Brexit, the way UK is in trouble is because all the guys who are driving the trucks, they are from Poland and Czechoslovakia and the Eastern European countries. All went back home. Now today what UK is facing really is driver shortage there is because all these guys have gone and the guys, the UK guys of course for a different reason, they don't want to drive because they probably the pay that they get or the environment or whatever conditions that they have to live through, they don't. But I'm saying it's about how well you are paying your drivers and are you giving them the status of a reasonably good stakeholder. Ultimately, he's an important stakeholder. You bought a truck which is 50 lakhs and you don't want to pay him even 20k per month. But that's ridiculous.
But I'm actually surprised that the whole of Europe is facing shortage of drivers. It's not just UK, the whole of Europe, because we've been in touch with IRU and the reports are mind-blowing. I mean, 20-30% shortage already.
Europe as well?
Yes.
I would be surprised because there's a whole lot of migrations that have happened, let's say from Turkey or wherever.
But despite that,
despite that, I agree. So I think Europe would probably relatively less, but of course, one has heard it a little bit in US as well. So anyway, so coming back to the Indian scheme of things, I think there's a lot of lip service which happens. I'm sorry to say this, it's a hard statement. The last 20 years we've been talking about this, that a driver's son does not want to become a driver. How do you make that happen? You have to make it happen by creating conditions, by creating conditions which will make him happen, right? I mean, will make him become. I think the same problem is there in agriculture. When I'm just digressing again for a minute. A farmer's son doesn't want to become a farmer. I think there's a fair amount of mechanization that has happened, whether it is tractors, whether it is harvesters and all that stuff. But then you need to, coming back to the drivers, you need to create conditions so that, you pay him well, you take care of him and all of that stuff. But sadly, no boss. I think unless this gets handled, I don't think we will come out of this so-called driver shortage scenario.
Well, friends, that was part one of our interaction with Mr. Shyam Maller. We will continue our conversation with Maller next week and know more about his journey in the commercial vehicle space. See you again next week with Mr. Shyam Maller. Until then, stay safe. Jai Hind.